Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Talking with T. I'm your host, Christopher Tatarian, and today I have an amazing guest for you guys, a six-time Evo champion, and one of my really good friends. You guys have definitely heard of this man, one of the most genius fighting game players, one of the most genius Street Fighter players, actually. If I had to put some people on the Mount Rushmore of Street Fighter, Infiltration would be on there. Welcome, Infiltration, to the show. I'm so happy to have you here, and I am ready to pick at your mind and, try to understand how it is that you've been so successful in Street Fighter and obviously other fighting games as well. But to the audience that's listening, we also have his translator here, Will, and I'm just grateful to have both of you guys here. And yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Chris. It's been a while. And hello, FGC. This is Infiltration. Long time no see.
Yeah. It's definitely been a while. I can't remember, the last tournament that I saw you at was, I want to say maybe final round or something, but, maybe it was Evo Japan, I think, not Evo Japan, what am I saying? It was the Japan Cup when we actually played Jury versus Ken in tournament. What a trip. But I'm trying to start this episode with a little bit of an introduction to how it is that I met you. I think the first time that I met you was in 2012 at Evo. We actually ended up playing against each other. And you are the main reason as to why my name got out there in the first place. And it's just very funny how this happened, but I was still known as an online player, and that Evo was very big for me because it put my name out there. And the reason why I put my name out there was because I was the only one that took a game off of you in that Evo. And ever since then, people started mentioning me and my Ken. So I have a lot of thanks to you for that, because you let me get one game, and it ended up starting my Street Fighter career. Do you remember that day, actually?
Yeah, I remember that time, Evo 2012 for Street Fighter 4. At the time, I bodied almost every pro players, including Daigo and Japanese players, US players, but you, Christy, I met you for the first time there in Las Vegas,
Yeah.
and I won 2-0, 3-0, 3-0, 3-0 against pro players, but you 2-1. You took my set.
Yeah. What a trip. And I did the most random jump tatsu to be able to get that game. But it's just crazy. And ever since then, honestly, we've actually become really good friends over the years. And I always come to you with questions. You're always very, very supportive. You're one of those players that I feel like truly believes in me and my ability, and have always provided me with such a positive energy. And I can't thank you enough for that, man. To have that sort of affirmation from one of the greatest players is huge for my mental confidence, for my ability when I play, and knowing that I can still do this. And you've been there with me for a very long time now, since I was a teenager. So I'm very grateful for your presence in my life and how you've shaped my journey as well. I'm a little interested in hearing how you got into fighting games in the first place. And this is a question that I've been asking all of my guests, because something that I've discovered is we all have our own unique story of what got us into fighting games. And me listening to other people talk about their stories is also very, very, not just relatable, but it's such a profound feeling, because I know how I got into Street Fighter and all the things that needed to happen in my life to lead me to competitive gaming. And it's always very interesting to hear other people, especially the pro players, on what got them to be as competitive as they are. So what was the Korean culture like when you were growing up? And tell me about the upbringing that you had and how you explained to your father, I'm really, really good at this fighting game shit. So I got to be able to do this.
All right, I'm gonna speak Korean from now.
Okay. Yeah, of course.
일단은
So Infiltration has always been playing fighting games. He said that his first fighting game was Street Fighter 1 when he was 7 or 8, and since then he's always been going to arcades and has played everything under the sun, King of Fighters, Tekken, you name it. And by the time he was in his mid 20s, he had gathered considerable skill and convinced his parents that, hey, maybe for a couple years, please give me the opportunity to travel abroad and compete. And so he considers 2011 his first serious competitive year. This year, his results were not that great, but in 2012, which is also happens to be year that he met you, he took Evo, and so from then on, um, within his family, this was seen as very favorable and something that could be a viable career option.
Wow, it's great to hear that his mom and dad were very receptive to the initial hey mom and dad, this is something that I want to do, I'm pretty good at it, can I travel abroad? Because from my experience, it was very difficult for me to be able to explain this to my parents. They're very old school. They didn't understand the concept of playing a video game and making money or competing against other people. So it was very difficult for me. And it's mind blowing that only 1 year after he started being able to compete, this man goes and wins Evo. And that Evo was so hard. I have some questions regarding that Evo win as well. But that's a very interesting story, and it's very reminiscent to that feeling of, you know what, I'm actually really good at this, and then being able to trust yourself to go out and do it. Now, mine was a bit more delusional because I was 14, 15 years old, and I didn't really get any big wins until years down the line. But for Infiltration to be able to recognize that and then be able to prove it to the world, it's very impressive, because I feel like a lot of people need a lot of tournament experience in order for them to be able to understand how to combat pressure, how to deal with nerves, how to deal with the doubts that come to your head naturally, how to go on stage and choke under pressure, and then be able to learn from that after experiencing it over and over again, being on stream over and over again. But for Infil, it literally took 1 year, and then he goes out and it's lights out from there. History's made. So that's just something I want to highlight, because that is extremely impressive. And it leads me to one of the first questions that I have. There's a topic of developing a signature style that I want to get into here, and I've written 3 bullet points. The first bullet point, Sonu, is I would like for you to delve into your distinctive approach to gaming, known as the Infiltration style, characterized by its unpredictable transitions from defense to offense. That's the first thing I want to get into. And then the other 2 bullet points as well, let me just mention it now, is discuss the strategic choice of characters like Akuma, Nash, Genjuro that complement this Infiltration style, and elaborate on the development of this style, including its origins, strategic advantages, potential vulnerabilities, particularly in the context of the 2 out of 3 tournament setting. If he wants to break that down between the 3 bullet points and answer one by one, that would be really appreciated. And if he needs me to repeat that as well, I definitely will. I just got a little excited, so I definitely want to get into how he developed this Infiltration style. From my perspective, it just seems like he knows how to play extremely annoying, solid neutral and more on the defensive side, but he knows exactly when to turn the switch and go on offense.
인필트레이션의 스타일이라고 하면 좀 저 스스로는 hit and run이라고 생각하거든요. 때리고 도망가고 이런 느낌.
So Info considers Street Fighter a game to have a slower flow relative to something like King of Fighters or Guilty Gear in terms of their movement options. And so to him, he thinks that Street Fighter on the whole moves a little bit more slowly. However, he prefers playing in a more nimble hit and run fashion. And so this way he always wants to be applying pressure. And also he said that he always, even if somebody that didn't understand the game was watching, he wants it to be magnificent. He wants it to be very stylish, and
Mm.
so these were the two aspects that he's always strived to combine. And he says, fortunately, which I think is a bit of an understatement because obviously a lot of skill has gone into it, but fortunately, this has been a very effective overall tactic on the competitive stage. And later on, he's going to elaborate on how um, this also kind of is reflected in the characters that he picks, such as DiCaprio in Street Fighter,
Yeah, yeah.
and so on.
Yeah, and first of all, Will, I want to apologize and to the audience as well. I asked 3 questions and expected you to remember everything that he just said as well. So I'll try to go about it as one bullet point at a time, so that way you're not fed with so much information as well all at once. So I apologize on that.
You're so
But
good.
that
I
was
already explained to him the whole like split into 3 bullet points thing, and
gotcha,
he's cool with
gotcha.
it. So yeah, so that
Okay,
was just infiltration style, and
yeah,
then we can get into characters and their
yes.
how
Okay,
to
beautiful.
utilize in tournaments, etc.
Yeah, so yeah, the choice of characters that he has, like Akuma, Nash, Genjiro, um, the Capri, and even Hakan that he pulled out during Evo 2012 finals. I'm just curious as to how, like, did he just see the moves and was like, this looks like something that fits my style, or was it like I'm using my style with these characters?
어, 반반 섞여 있다라고 생각을 해요. 일단 스트리트 파이터 4에서는 제가 정말로 많은 캐릭터를 사용을 했었는데 특히나
So in short,
인필트레이션에서 사용할 것 같지
the
않은
answer is it's a mix of both. So Infiltration says that Street Fighter 4 was a game that he in particular enjoyed tremendously, and so he like it was very easy for him to practice a lot because he had so much fun doing it, and he really wanted his enjoyment of Street Fighter 4 to be reflected in the audience's experience of watching him. And
Ooh.
so part of the reason why he had such a deep character pool and also would pull out surprise picks like Hugo or Hakan was that he just wanted to put on a good show. Um, but as we transitioned into Street Fighter Five, like like Nash in season one, he says that in Street Fighter Five it became more of a pick a character based on what fits my style.
Mm.
Big picture.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's also interesting because he, from what I remember, didn't play Akuma when Akuma came out. He had switched over to Jury and other types of characters, but I thought Akuma was his favorite character. And so for me, it's very interesting to hear this because it sounds like he has a love for the game more so than the attachment to the character. And that's something that I've struggled with for a long time because I feel like my attachment to the character Ken has inhibited me. I don't know if inhibited is the right word, but hasn't quite allowed me to flourish to the best of my skills because I want to use Ken and I want to win with Ken. So that's where it's different. Where it's different for me. But okay, so elaborating then on the development of the style, including how the origins of it, the strategic advantages, and the potential vulnerabilities. And if I may, just to add one extra thing, when I say elaborate on the development of the style, I'm trying to understand. Yes, I get that it's hit and run. I'm trying to understand the the atomic level layers as to when he's hitting, when he's running. What is he paying attention to when he's hitting, and what is he paying attention to when he's running? And obviously, the neutral that is combined for both of them. So I'm really trying to understand the dissection of it, like what is going on here inside of his mind.
우선은 제 스타일이 대회에서는 좀 잘 먹힌다고 생각을 해요. 앞서 말씀드렸듯이 특히 베스트
So
3나
Infiltration
5까지
considers his overall style to be something that's much more beneficial in a short form tournament format than in a longer like set such as first to 7, first to 10, etc. Because eventually, like over the course of that set, as the opponent kind of figures out his pacing, it starts to be less and less in his favor. Um, However, in a tournament setting, works in very much in his favor. And he says that, normally speaking, you would have to invest or slash he feels the need to invest a round or two in kind of analyzing the opponent's spacing. Do they lean more towards short moves that keep him away or longer moves that are meant to reach him? Standard neutral basically.
Right.
But he says that in a tournament setting, he doesn't want to risk having to invest those rounds to kind of download the opponent. And
Yeah.
so in a large tournament setting, he'll spend a lot of time walking around, kind of watching everyone to kind of gather information as much as possible so that he can press whatever advantage he has already garnered from them once he's already on the stage.
So he's telling me that he can walk around in the venue, and let's just say an Evo venue, and he's looking at Daigo, Kazunoko, Momochi, Mena, Bonchan, Kakeru, all these amazing players, and then just be able to make mental notes like, oh, Daigo, he does this, I'm going to take advantage of this. Kazunoko, he does this, I'm going to take advantage of this. Like, he's making that level of deciphering in such a short amount of time. That's like computer level type of analysis. Could you ask him? I don't know if he exactly like went into detail with it, but this run and hit style. When I first started playing, and even in 5, I tried to apply this as well. I had a similar type of play style where I could dash back and try to mentally mess with my opponent's head, like, oh, why is he backdashing here? Double backdash, what the heck is happening? Fireball, dash forward, FADC. But mine was more careless. Mine wasn't as well thought out. Mine wasn't diabolical yet. It was just a kid that was trying to confuse the opponent. I want to learn, because I believe that infiltration style is something that I need to be able to apply into my own style. And I want to learn, how is it that I can really make sure that the decisions that I'm going for are going to pay off.
아무래도 크리스가 사용하는 캐릭터는 대부분 캔이기 때문에 그 외의 캐릭터는 제가 사용하는 걸 본 적이 없어요. 크리스티라는 선수가. 하지만 저는
So infiltration essentially considers Ken a hyper aggressive character that isn't really suited for hitting and running. Obviously, you are very well known for playing almost exclusively Ken, and Ken since always has been a fantastic hit character. But infiltration, for example, in Street Fighter 6, thinks that from longer ranges, he has fireball, he has dash in, he has more common options, but he doesn't have the most diverse ways to approach, and especially when compared to his preferred characters, especially Ed in Street Fighter V Season 2, or Nash in Season 1. These are characters with very, very useful backdashes and are also very effective at approaching very quickly.
Yeah.
And so essentially he thinks that Ken is a character that is better suited for constant pressure rather than hitting and running. So he thinks that it would be most effective to play to Ken's strengths rather than to force a style that maybe the kit isn't as well designed for.
Ooh, that is fucking genius. That is beautiful. Okay.
Sorry, really quickly. He also said
absolutely.
that, like, maybe the occasional backdash is fine, of course, to throw the opponent off, but
Yeah.
really it should not be a hit and run. It should be a mix up or a distraction rather than a integral part to the overall strategy.
Beautiful. Yeah, I would 100% agree. Now that I think about it, it clicked the light bulb inside of my head, because in my head I'm thinking, And I have to be able to rush my opponent down, and I have to be able to make it feel like I'm constantly applying pressure on my opponent in order for me to win with Ken. I can't do a run and hit style because the further I get away, the worse it is for me. And Ken excels when he's right next to you. So I think that my biggest mistake as a Street Fighter player was only playing Ken, only maining Ken and entering tournaments as Ken, and trying to force my way to be able to win every single matchup in the fashion that I have to make. But the reality of the situation is it would have just been so much better if I had a couple of other characters that I could rely on when it came time for bad matchups or styles that could be more beneficial in order to beat a certain player. Maybe you could say that to Infiltration as well. I'm sure he'd probably agree after watching me all these years.
So essentially, Infiltration agrees, and he believes that, especially in Street Fighter 6, the most important skill to have as a player to win is to be flexible, both as a person and as a competing player. He thinks that the ability to very quickly adapt to your opponent's playstyle over the course of a set is crucial to winning, and he also believes that this is better for you as a player in the long run, where if your character maybe gets nerfed, as Ken slightly has in the most recent patch, then how do you play around that? The same adaptability can be applied to your opponents. Maybe they've stopped using a certain move, then like how do you adapt to that? And so it's about being able to both big picture adapt in terms of the changes that happen over the course of a season, over balancing patches to your character, and also on a micro level in the middle of the match. And perhaps he suggests that stubbornness is something that kind of runs counter to this attribute that he deems very important.
Ooh, that was very wise right there because it had a direct impact on my ability to perform in the finals for Street Fighter League. I went up against Sako, and I don't have Chun Li experience. There's nobody in America that plays Chun Li, and Sako has a ton of Ken experience. I feel like if I were to have played a bad matchup for Sako, I would have had a way higher probability of actually beating him and help my team get some 10 points there. Because of my love for Ken and my lack of hours of being able to actually train these days, so it felt like it inhibited my ability to help Mena in that part of the game of actually playing on stage. I didn't do too bad, but that was a direct result of me not being flexible enough. So, moving on to the next topic is the mindset of a champion. So, I want to ask Infiltration this. How does someone win Evo 6 times? Once is enough for a lifetime, but this man has done it 6 times in a very modern era as well. How I just want him to be able to explain the mental preparation, the mental resilience required for such consistent success, how you manage pressure, anxiety, and doubt during competitions.
우선 토너먼트를 이기기 위한 전체적인 큰 흐름은 하나하나 뭐 작은 사건 하나하나에 너무 개의치 않고 걱정을 많이 하지 않고 빨리 잊어버리는 게 좋아요. 이거는 인생도 똑같지만 살면서
So, Infiltration, big picture, has two pieces of advice. The first is to not sweat the little things. And he thinks that this philosophy also applies to life, where in life, you make a lot of little mistakes, but that's okay. You know, you move on, you don't dwell on them too much, and dedicating any amount of brain power to dwelling on something negative is just a waste and is not conducive to winning. And he sees tournaments as kind of the same way. If anything, he says that whenever he takes his first L and goes into losers bracket, he thinks of it as an opportunity to play more, have more fun, show off people more highlights. He thinks of it overall as a positive. And so in a tournament setting, he tries not to dwell on the little mistakes that he makes too much. And then the second piece of advice is to hold your cards close to your heart. So he thinks that Mena is an excellent example of this, where he doesn't put out a lot of content or stream very much, and especially in our in the current era of YouTube and Twitch, etc. It's very there are some players who we have a much better understanding of their playstyle than others. Whereas
Yes.
with Meta, unless you're playing him on the big stage or casually at an event, we really don't have that much data on him relative
Nope.
to how well he's performed and how well known he is. And
Correct.
so he thinks that this is also a good approach where obviously, you should have your streaming set of skills where you have fun and it's something that you're ready to show to people on a regular basis, but you should hold your best techs close to heart and really only pull them out when they're necessary, and that he thinks is also beneficial to winning in the long run.
Yeah, I mean, that makes perfect sense, and that would go with the mental preparation as well. Because if you know that you have a trick up your sleeve and you're about to pull it out, I mean, we did that at Street Fighter League in the U.S. and Mana did that in the World Final as well. He pulled out some tech against Ryusei that actually worked, and I remember being in private sessions with him where we weren't streaming. I mean, for the past month, I haven't been streaming because I've been training with Mena. Oh, actually, for the past month, we were using burner accounts. So I stopped streaming for the last month before going to Street Fighter League finals because we were talking about a lot of tech. Mena was showing me things that he was working on. We were working on things together, and we definitely don't want that to be on stream. So having a burner account and doing that is a great piece of advice from myself and from Infil, because it worked out in our favor. They weren't ready for some of the things that we had prepared for. In terms of winning Evo 6 times, the reason why I want to ask this is because most people, including myself, probably say, if I won Evo once, that's it. I'm done. I'm retiring. I'm about to venture off in a new hobby. At least for me, there's other hobbies that I want to do as well in life. But for Sonu, he's been winning Evo 6 times. It's like, I just won the biggest tournament in the world, and I'm going to prepare for the next one, and then I'm going to prepare for the next one, and then, oh my God, I did it again. Okay, I did it the third time, now 4, and now 5. Man, does this guy feel fear? Like, that, the doubt that creeps into your mind when you win. Sometimes you start thinking, man, I kind of have to win because I'm one of the best, and then you start feeling pressure. It's crazy how you could do it so many times.
프로게이머 생활을 시작하고 나서 제가 아주 크게 느끼는 점은 마치 스포츠 선수들이나 프로게이머 선수들이나 경쟁이라는 거를 하는 사람들은
He said just the
정말로
most
은퇴하기
epic shit.
전까지는
I need to so basically Infiltration considers
우승을 하는
competition and the competitive spirit as something that never ends until the moment you retire. On the whole, of course, he is proud that he has won Evo 6 times, but every time, the moment since his first Evo win in 2012, he thought to himself, this time that I can enjoy as a winner is so short because my career, it is ongoing and there are more tournaments to win. And so, if you have to go to a different tournament like 2 days later, then it starts all over again. You have to win all over again. And so he always maintains this endless competitive spirit. And he thinks that as much as he is proud of his achievements, he doesn't feel like he's done. 6 wins is good, but why not 10? Why not 20? Why not the best in the world? And until he retires, he just doesn't consider himself done. He just has to keep seeing that through. And he also considers, in this regard, he considers Justin Wong very highly because, of course, he's won countless numbers of tournaments, but at this point in his stage, his content game is real strong. He's fostering a lot of up and coming players, and while his individual competitive performance is something that's changed, his spirit as a player is consistent. It's just pointed in a slightly different direction. Um, and Info also speaks of course, he has moments of self doubt, but if anything, he kind of brushed it aside as like this is just something that fuels my desire to win again. Um, yeah.
So regarding the Justin comment, I also feel like, obviously Justin has changed his direction with what he's doing in the fighting game community. And I feel like a lot of that is actually because he had a daughter. So it's very difficult to be able to do this when you have a family now. Um, I don't even know if Infiltration has any kids yet, but I don't know if that's something that he's planning on doing, and how that would affect his drive to compete. Like has he thought about that? Like one day if he wants to have a child.
당연히 한 명의 사람으로서 남자로서 가족을 갖고 내 가정을 이루고 싶다라는 꿈이라든가 계획은
So Infiltration feels that having a family might be a little bit difficult for him in the immediate future, primarily because he still feels the need to compete and to challenge players that are more powerful than him. He of course understands that players such as Justin Wong have families and children, and that's lovely, and he understands that it would be very painful to be away from them for long periods of time, to fly to faraway places, etc. But he as of yet doesn't feel tired of traveling and of competing and challenging other people, and as of right now that would be his priority. He also feels that were he to start a family, he feels that maybe he would convince them, he would be more on the convincing side to let him be away more so that he can continue to compete.
I
But in
see.
terms of the immediate future, his competitive desire outweighs his desire to have a family.
No,
Also, he is
that's
single.
yeah. No, that's amazing though. That's honestly like something that Tom Brady would say. He stepped away from his family for a very long time. He convinced them that this is what he's amazing at, and that there was still more Super Bowls for him to win. So that is actually directly in line with how Tom Brady approached it. So it's just I guess the greats, or some of the greats, just have a competitive spirit that never dies off. And I feel like my competitive spirit will never die off as well, but maybe I might just transition to other dreams that I have in life as well. But that's interesting to hear his perspective on that. Okay, I wanna talk about the strategic thinking behind such a notable decision as picking Hakan against PR Rog in the Evo Grand Finals. He picked it for one match, and is that because he felt like he was playing PR Rog's game after PR Rog had tied it up, and he wanted PR Rog to play Infiltration's game, and maybe felt like, for example, what I'm saying is, was he playing Balrog's game with Akuma and he felt uncomfortable? And did he feel like it's one game for the world title? I'm going to make Eduardo feel uncomfortable and I'm going to pick Hakan. Or was this like thought out way before? Did he plan this? How does that even happen, to have the balls? The reason why I'm asking this question is because you have to have balls to be able to make that decision in Evo Grand Finals after you have been destroying everybody, and you're still hot with Akuma and you haven't even touched Hakan yet. That takes balls, and for it to work out.
우선 에피소드가 하나 있는데 제가 예전에 미국에 잠깐 들렀을 때
This is a never before heard anecdote, but basically, many years ago, in the Street Fighter 4 era, when Infiltration was traveling to the US for a separate tournament, he had stayed over at Justin Wong's for a couple days. And while he was playing online, he was matched up with PR Rog. And he had happened to pick Hakan against him in this match. And it quickly became clear to Infiltration that PR Rog didn't have a lot of matchup knowledge going into Hakan. So this was a piece of information that Infiltration was holding on to, thinking maybe one day I can use this as a wild card pick, as a surprise. Um, Fast forward to the famous set, Infiltration was down 2-1. And obviously, both Balrog and Akuma are very powerful characters in this moment. And he thought, well, of course, everybody's going to cheer for the, these are both meta picks. We're going to cheer for the home player of PR Rog, because Infiltration has flown in from far, far away. And so, in that moment, he was thinking really long and hard, like, I know that his matchup knowledge against Hakan is a little bit lacking, and wouldn't it be crazy if I can mix up the vibe of the room? And as he was thinking about this, he hovered Hakan, and
Yep, and the whole place erupts.
Yep, and the rest is history. Really, I've obviously seen the clip, but immediately the mood in the room shifted, and he thought, okay, this is something I can use to my advantage. So essentially, his answer to your question is all of the above. In that, he already had known a little bit in advance that this might be a useful strategy to use against him. Um, and also he wanted to put on a good show, and and of course, Hakan is a favorable pick, and so he figured maybe if I pick Hakan, I can play my game, and all of those things paid off.
So, leading into the next question, I want to talk about decision making in the heat of battle. So, I would like for Infiltration to be able to dive deeper into how he adapts to his opponent's tactics. And I want to use this specific example. Round one, I get whiff punished. DRC, I get knocked down in the corner, and my opponent decides to throw me. In my head, it's difficult to decide, okay, do I take the second throw, or he might go for throw again, let me backdash or jump forward. That wheel spin, it's so difficult to assess what is the best decision in this 2 out of 3. I obviously don't want to get hit by a meaty button, but if I take the double throw, it puts me right back in the same spin the wheel situation. But this time, it becomes more dramatic. There's no way, this is how my brain processes it. No way he's going to throw me the third time in a row. Let me jump or backdash to avoid it. Or, fuck, if I get hit from this meaty button, I'm now closer to death. It's probably best to take the third throw. Okay, now spin the wheel again. Okay, well now I'm in the same loop, but even more volatile, because now he's thrown me 3 times in a row. So now my brain goes, is he really going to throw me 4 times in a row? I have to do something to make him think he can't just throw me. Or, no way he's for sure going to delay something, so I will do wake up jab or jump forward. So I'm trying to cut down on reversal options. Mena told me I need to take more throws. How can I cycle my defensive options a little better in the 2 out of 3? When do I implement a response to what my opponent is doing? For example, well, in round 1, he threw me 4 times. Now it's round 2. After he knocks me down, do I go for a backdash on my first wake up because he did throw when I was first knocked down in round 1? Or do I take the throw again and try to respond on the second throw attempt, possibly? This is the dilemma inside my head when one decision can lead to so much momentum for the opponent, regardless of what I do. It doesn't seem like a chess move, but a literal guess. What is my opponent going to do? Because it's so difficult to read. I hope you understood that well.
우선은 앞서 말씀드린 조언 중에 하나인데 한 장면 하나하나의 의미를 너무 크게 두지 않는 게 좋을 것 같아요. 내가 한 번 잡혔다. 웨이크업하고 2번 잡혔다. 3번 잡혔다. 그래서 기분이 나쁘다.
Basically, since the dawn of time, since the dawn of Street Fighter, if you're in the corner, you're screwed. You're inherently in a situation where you have to guess, and that's just how the game is. And once you're in the corner, like there's no point just being stressed about it because you've essentially already lost, etc., etc. And so when Infil is in the corner, the way he thinks about it is, actually just take the block. Just take the throw loop, because if your opponent is going to continuously throw you, there is a lot of data that you can gather throughout this process. For example, this opponent has balls, or this opponent is stubborn. He will repeatedly throw me because he can, um, and so on and so forth. And so the very
Ooh.
fact that your opponent will continue to throw you is giving you information. And on top of that, thinking about it in this way makes it so that you're not sweating over the loss of that one round and
Yes.
getting pigeonholing your mental into that, like, now do I tech the throw. Basically, Info thinks, don't sweat that. Don't sweat that. And just the fact that, yes, you're gonna lose this round, but that's fine, because now that you know that your opponent is going to um,
Be
throw
very
you
stubborn.
constantly.
Or yeah.
Right. This gives you a bunch of information about their play style, and
Oh
so
my
you want to utilize
god.
that better in the next round. And furthermore, he also thinks that, perhaps unsurprisingly, this is why, stopping them from putting you in the corner in the first place is so much more important than once you're in the corner sweating the micro decisions of teching the throw or taking it. Um, and this also ties into why he considers it so important to kind of walk around and analyze everyone's play styles a little bit so that he can prevent himself from getting into the corner in the first place.
That is the definition of brilliant, and I can't believe it never sparked in my head that I can just take the throw, and if he's willing to throw me that many times, it's a tell on his personality in the game. And that could be used to my advantage. That is just, oh man, that was just an aha moment that I needed to hear. And I feel like that's going to change everything in how I approach from now on. I need to have a specific strategy for somebody that is playing like that rather than just being so scared. I'm just, oh, so scared. Why am I so scared? Because I don't have a fucking strategy to be able to recognize, this guy's a stubborn guy. He's going to really throw me 6 times in a row. A great example of that is someone like Phenom. Phenom, you will command grab you 5 times, 6 times in a row. But there's strategies around it. Oh my god, man. And I like the fact that he said, except that you probably already lost the round because you're in a roulette game at that point. But that not all hope is lost because you do end up getting that tell of my opponent being stubborn. And you should probably have a counter to that, right? Okay, so feeding off of that, I would like for him to explore the importance of understanding every possible action and reaction for both your character and your opponent's character. The reason why I'm asking this question is because I want to see how most top players answer this question. Fudo told me that every situation needs to be taken care of. Every single situation that could happen needs to happen. Is that how his approach is as well? And how does he... It's going to lead to the next part that I want to talk about, labbing. But just a quick general answer to that.
예, 후도 선수가 얘기한 부분에선 완벽하게 공감을 하고요. 최대한 자신이 생각할 수 있는 모든 시나리오를 다 생각을 하고 그 시나리오를 생각을 했으면 그 시나리오를 해결할 수 있는 방법을 많이 연습해서 딱 그 상황이 나왔을 때 몸이 자동적으로 반응할 수 있게 훈련하는 게 기본.
Infiltration agrees wholeheartedly with what Fudo said. He also believes that, because Fudo executes on that philosophy so well, that everything should be accounted for. That is why you will almost never see Fudo eliminated in pools. That just doesn't happen. He
Yeah.
will always make it to top 8 or top 3, because he has labbed every single scenario reflexively, to the end of time. He, of course, also believes that this should be the natural way to train to be a pro, and to study other players' VODs or streams for ways to lab certain things, which I believe will perfectly feed into your specific questions regarding labbing.
Beautiful. So let's take it to the labbing. So mastering the art of training. So describe what an effective training session entails for you, including the focus on combos, timing, sequences, and situational awareness, and just situations in general. What does that look like for Infiltration? You pop open the PC, you pop open the game and you go into training mode, what does that look like for him? Hours, everything. I want to understand what is his go-tos and the things that he really focuses on, all of that aspect when it comes to training. Especially how many hours too, especially how many hours. Total, as in like in a day, for example. I mean, I'm assuming Infiltration doesn't work a 9 to 5 and he does this full time. So I just want to understand from the full time perspective because I know it, I've lived it, and I would like for him to share it for his fans and for the audience to know it as well, to see the similarity and the level of commitment that is needed.
일단 콤보 연습은 그렇게 많이 하지는 않아요. 왜냐면 콤보가 엄청나게 어려운 게 아닌 이상 스트리트 파이터 6에서는 그렇게까지 많이 연습할 필요가 없다고 생각하고요. 다양한 콤보 시나리오를 가지는 캐릭터 아니면 뭐 저스트 타이밍 콤보라든가 뭐 루크의 퍼펙트 타이밍 플래시
네,
너클이나
알겠습니다.
아니면 뭐 JP
So, Infiltration's average training session is about 4 to 5 hours, and he says that he spends almost all of that labbing scenarios. He almost never plays online because of the stress of elo and the long wait times, etc., etc. He
The
just
stress of
doesn't
what?
really
The
good.
stress of elo?
Yeah, like having to like MMR, like points, like rank points.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay.
But like, there's all these little things that kind of get in the way of him ultimately improving his skill set. So the vast majority of that session is spent labbing different scenarios, and he spends about an hour kind of reorganizing the strengths and weaknesses of each option mentally, so that he can pull them out as fast as possible. Um, he said that he rarely trains for combos unless it's a like Luke Perfect Knuckle or like a character with more complicated combo routes like JP. But unless you're playing one of those characters, he doesn't consider combo practice to be something that's that important. Really, it's reactions to different scenarios, and weighing, and not only labbing the scenarios, but coming up with multiple solutions and weighing the pros and cons of each, so that he will also be able to react to them in multiple different ways.
Yeah. Oh, that makes perfect sense. Okay. That is very good to know because to know that he puts 4 to 5 hours a day into that is very daunting when you think about someone that you will compete against spends 4 to 5 hours a day specifically dissecting situations and sequences, coming up with multiple options and understanding which are the best options, which are the not so good options. And he's doing that on a daily basis. That is very daunting to know that if you listening go up against Infiltration one day, that's what you're going up against. So that's very common with what top players typically say. And but for Infiltration, he focuses more so on the sequences during his training session rather than playing online, including the online play and getting matchup experience as part of the training regimen. I feel like from my conversations with Tokido and Angry Bird and Mena and all these other players, they can spend up to 10 to 15 hours a day training. Breaks here and there, but a lot of playing time, understanding matchups, and then obviously going over sequences and whatnot. But for Infil 4 to 5, and I barely ever see him play online like that. He's just mainly always in training mode. So that's unique to Infiltration for sure. Okay, so then the last part of this question would be, does Infiltration have any advice for people that have full-time jobs and how to train given a week structure? How does somebody with a full-time job that isn't a top player go about training, and how does he divide his time? Let's just say that he gets home from work, he has about 2 hours to play. Most adults have about 2 hours to play because they have families, etc., a lot of other responsibilities and whatnot, and they can maybe push it to 2 to 3. But how does that person be able to devote time into his training regimen, and how realistic does he have to be considering that training regimen in winning a local, major, or a global event? And I've spoken about this with F Champ, but I'm curious to hear it from Infiltration side because he seems to understand how to really get the train effectively, not so many like hours, but making sure that the hours are smart hours of training.
사실 트레이닝 방법은 그렇게 특별하지는 않아요. 제가 트레이닝에서 할 수 있는 건 대부분 시나리오를 만들어두고 그걸 해결하고 실전에서 적용하기 위해서 연습을 하는 거고 자신에게 부족한 점을 보완하기 위해서 트레이닝 모드를 한다고 생각합니다. 내가
Infiltration doesn't think that there's anything special to the way that he trains, nor in the way that anyone should train, in that you should focus on patching your specific weaknesses. So for him, that's deepening his matchup knowledge and labbing as many scenarios as possible. But for you, maybe that's DPing consistently, or perfect parry timing, or smaller technical things. But it should be your time spent training should be tailored to your specific weaknesses and whatever it is you need most in that moment. And he also speaks to something that he is sure that you, Chris, feel, that many of his viewers feel, that many pros feel, where it takes a long time for your improvements to be noticeable, in that they'll show up very inconsistently and also very suddenly, where you'll train for weeks, months on end, and it doesn't really feel like you're getting better. But one day you wake up and it clicks and it just
Yeah.
starts to show up. And that's just a part of training and improvement. And so until the thing that you are practicing shows up without even you thinking about it, you just have to keep doing it.
That is a very beautiful answer, because that is exactly what happens. One day you cannot anti-air somebody consistently, and then you wake up and it's muscle memory and it just clicks. And obviously you'll miss some anti-airs here and there, but you don't have to think about it as hard anymore. It just becomes muscle memory, and that's the click that I think he's talking about. It's just beautiful answer. Guys, if you haven't followed Infiltration on Twitch or subscribed to his YouTube, make sure to follow him at Infiltration85. There will be some links on the description box as well. Will, I want to thank you so much for your time in translating everything that he said so perfectly, by the way, Will. I mean, the way that you described it was spot on, and I'm mind blown at how you're able to retain so many words and then be able to repeat them back in such an eloquent fashion. So I'm grateful for you being here and helping us out in that. And Sanu, my bro, thank you so much for being here. I love you, man. It's been a long time since I've seen you. I hope I get to see you again soon. We take a shot together. I miss you, man. I hope I can get to see you soon, bro. I really appreciate you for your time. Thank you so much for being here, Sanu.
No problem. Thank you for having me. And can I say something to you and FJC?
Yes, please. Please.
First of all, I'm so proud of you, my friend Christy. You are awesome. You're always trying so hard to find a way to be better, to be stronger, and now you got amazing result. Now you are champion of SFL US and SFL World. You're such an amazing player and good friend. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. That means a lot, man. It means a lot. You know, you've been there throughout the whole journey, so you know how hard I've worked for all of this, and obviously couldn't do it with my teammates without my teammates helping me. So that was a huge part of it as well. But this was something very special to me because I trained really hard for this, and thank you so much, man. All right, well, chat, thank you guys. Chat, I feel like I'm streaming right now. To the audience listening, thank you guys very much for your time. God bless you guys as well. Please make sure to like and subscribe for more amazing content like this, and leave a comment below on your thoughts for this episode. Again, thank you for listening. I hope you guys have a blessed evening. Goodbye.